Hi, everyone. I'm Gold Derby News and Features Editor Ray Richmond, and I'm here today with Simon Elliott, the production designer on the Netflix four-part World War II limited series, All the Light We Cannot See, that's adapted from the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel by Anthony Doerr. Simon, you do such a beautiful job on your designs in this show, which allowed you to dedicate so much loving attention to the project. Uh, was it at all a daunting challenge for you going in, understanding, kind of the immense scale you'd be dealing with?
I'm not sure the word is daunting. I knew it was going to be of scale, but the joy comes from being given the script to begin with. And as soon as you start reading a script, you very quickly understand that this is going to be a bit of a gift for a designer. So all those kind of creative thoughts start flying, and you get, it's hard not to get very excited. And then, of course, the pressure of meeting the director and hoping that you will be the choice for the project. So I think for me, first off, is the excitement that it is a project that is a designer's gift.
I never thought about that either, Simon. So are you auditioning to be
Yeah.
to play the role of production designer as well as an actor would be auditioning to play a role
I,
in this?
you,
I never thought of that. I never imagined that craftspeople also audition.
yeah, we do. We do. I mean, if you're lucky and you've worked with a director before, then obviously you might get a direct offer. But for me in my career so far, it has been the norm to be invited to come meet. You get the script and then have to present your initial thoughts to the director, and hoping that you will find a synergy with them and they will invite you on their journey.
Wow. Well, congratulations. You clearly you're pretty good at pitching yourself because you've
Thank
certainly
you.
had a rich and rewarding career. Now, in terms of All the Light We Cannot See, you didn't actually shoot in Saint Malo, but in a small southern French village, right? Why not the real Saint Malo?
So we did shoot tiny little bit. We collectively as a production, we felt we wanted to honor the book and also honor the town. And was that on my arrival in Budapest, it was the first thing I said to Mary, our producer. I said, we need to go. I need to go and experience Saint Malo for myself. So we went, and it became very apparent very quickly that it's a beautiful place, but by the nature of the fact that our story reveals, it was destroyed. There was an extensive rebuilding project, and a lot of it has been built beautifully, but there's a level of authenticity that we were searching for that was no longer there. The wall is there. There are some buildings that are still there, but we still wanted to honor the town. So the beach sequence is in Saint Malo, and that was our way of kind of feeling connected to the material and to the place. And then it became, how do we find our version of Saint Malo? And yeah, we found an amazing town off the beaten path in South France called Villefranche-de-Rouergue. It's not on the tourist route. It's a beautiful, beautiful town. And the heart of it is this medieval town square. And expanding from that are these beautiful little alleyways, all cobbled, with authentic shop fronts that lend themselves to me coming along and giving them period makeover.
Wow. And it's thrilling also, Simon, to see the miniature replica of the city in episode one that young Marie-Laura's father uses to
Yes.
train his blind daughter to help navigate daily life. How difficult was that to construct?
It was, I mean, the process of getting to the point where we agreed what it was going to look like and get it built. That was a lengthy process. There was a lot of debate and maquettes made of scale because we had the two models. We had the one of Paris where small Marie had to explore, and then we had the slightly rougher later model of Saint Malo. And the difference between the two, and one is slightly more refined and polished and waxed, and the other is made of old wine crates and vegetable boxes. and we explored different ways of making it. So we experimented with 3D printing, we experimented with casting it, but ultimately none of these felt true and authentic. And in the end, it was down to a collection of very dedicated model makers who built it for real out of wood. It was a complete labor of love, and that's why it feels so beautiful and so real, because it is. It is crafted by artisans.
I can't even imagine how much work something like that would take.
Yeah.
You know, you see, this is why it's good you're doing this and not me, because I would probably say, hey, there's got to be some kind of CGI or AI thing I can do here to replace that. But
No,
it wouldn't be the same to look.
no. I mean, the instinct is obviously you have a prop and it's going to be a beautiful make, but we're so blessed with modern technology these days that's our shorthand to quickly. So we made little houses and we had 3D printed them, and then they were painted and they looked okay, but then you get the camera very close to them and you go, oh, it doesn't quite, and then you cast them out of expanding foam and the paint, and then and then it's like you keep bouncing back to, no, it just needs to be real. By which time I think our time frame had truncated because we'd lost a lot of time experimenting with materials and the scale, and then it was like, does anyone think we can do this? And thankfully, an extraordinary bunch of model makers who went, yeah. And I think they got behind the actual creation of it, and were investing their own talents into that model, which again, I think as an audience you feel. So you do believe it's been made by artisans because it has.
There's something actually reassuring about that, Simon, that it does have to be real and that you can't just push a few buttons and have it happen. I mean, in the, sometimes old school is still the best school way.
Yeah.
Were you worried at all about how Anthony Doerr himself would respond to how you visually interpret the descriptions in his book?
I was to begin with, and then I had to park that. I didn't meet Anthony till quite late on in the process. And so for me, actually, when I do adaptations, I do go back to the source material. I find that quite rewarding. I know screenplays are inevitably very different by the nature of the medium. But as a designer, there's often a descriptive level that's missing from a script. And sometimes that can be my hook into how I approach a particular set or the overall feel. And so there were a couple of things in the original material which were my jumping off point for particularly designing the house in Saint Malo. So there's a wonderful description that Anthony has of it being like a spine shell on its end. And when I read that and all the descriptions about the layers and the height and the different floors and the script and how much was centered around the staircase, that was my jumping off point. I designed the staircase before I designed the rest of the house. And from that spun everything else. And then there were other descriptions of the smell of faded silk, and the house was a temple to Napoleon IV furniture and things like that. So there were little gems. It was like mining for treasure that I do. And yeah, and then that's my leaping off point.
So the models of the city and the town and the house, were there any other challenging builds you had to deal with? And because it seems like time was kind of a luxury that you seemed to have plenty of time.
It was quite tight pre-production to get everything done. The biggest challenge was probably the grotto, where Marie goes to collect her oysters. That was a challenge because of the complexities. I mean, obviously building any water active set is a challenge. But then you add the addition of someone who's blind and stunts and moving water, and it's just layer upon layer of complexity. So that was a challenge, and exploring how to do that and make make it completely safe for Aria, but also make her comfortable enough that she had the freedom to do what she wanted without the added threat of hurting herself unnecessarily on a bit of scenery. So all the walls are rubberized, all those oyster shells are sculpted, it's all rubber, so that it wasn't a question of having to hit the same mark to make sure you only hit the one piece of rubber on the wall, but she had the freedom that she could move and not take away that fear of hurting herself.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question to you, Simon, is had you ever worked with blind performers before? I
No.
mean, what kind, I was going to say, what kind, I hadn't imagined.
It was, I have to say, it was a really enriching journey, and a truly sort of profound journey that I did with Aria, because
And this is
worked,
Aria Mia
yes,
Loberti we're talking
yeah,
about, and Nell Sutton as well, the young
yes,
Aria Laura.
because I work in a sighted medium. My life is my livelihood is dependent on my sight. So to then explore a world from a different perspective was very interesting, and from as simply as introducing Aria to the world she was going to inhabit. Not only was she blind, but also first time acting as well. So all of those complexities, but learning to express to her and describe sets without the use of sighted language, all those things that we take for granted. So it became very quickly, it was about texture, it was about smell, it was about sounds, the way a sound moves around a set. She would clap, she would click, she would touch everything. And that was most apparent in the attic set. I bought an old barn, and we constructed the attic out of the timbers of a century-old barn. And the first thing that Aria noticed when she walked onto the set was the smell. And for her, obviously, it smelt completely real, because you could smell those old timbers as they were slowly sort of drying out in the heat of the studio.
Wow, what a fascinating thing to
Yeah,
deal to have an opportunity and to have an opportunity to deal with, Simon. I mean, because, they say
yeah,
that the other senses on someone who's sight impaired or blind are
yes,
enhanced.
yes,
Smell, touch, feel. All of these things are enhanced. So you're really dealing with somebody who's hypersensitive to everything you're saying and everything they're smelling and perceiving.
yes.
And what an insight into just basically the human mind alone.
Yeah, I mean, just to see Aria's capacity to uh, exist in a world that I think most of us take for granted, and how she still appreciates and enjoys the world around her on a completely different level to someone like myself. So it was truly inspiring, and just seeing her learn a space and commit a space to memory. Yeah, it was very special.
Because everything, again, that you deal with, as you'd said, is about
Yeah,
visualization. And now suddenly somebody who's completely,
yeah,
deprived of that.
yeah, and
So,
also her insight. So we'd dress a room, and then I'd invite Aria to just say, is there anything here as you negotiate this space that just doesn't feel authentic to you? If a chair is in the wrong place, because over time it would just be moved to a different place because the flow of the room would be different. The points at which you touch a room when you come into it, whether it be the door handle or the door frame, so that we go, okay, well, let's wear that edge down more so that you feel that that's the place that gets touched the most. And where you leave your cane, when you familiarize your space, you don't bring it deep into the house. It's always left by the door, front door, things like that. So there was a level of insight, which also through her lived experience, Aria was able to share with me, to help add another layer of authenticity to everything.
Were there ever safety issues? I mean, with regard to, you can't leave something laying around because she's not going to see it or not going to feel it. Were you always hyper aware of making sure that everything was completely safe on the set?
Yeah, I think we were all hyper aware to begin with, and maybe overly so. And it was Aria who taught us to actually relax, because I was very concerned about the staircase. That there were several scenes where she has to run down the stairs, and it's quite and finding the pace of a staircase and knowing when you're going to hit each floor as you kind of you're not in the flow, then you hit the landing of what floor, and then when you come to the bottom. So I think very early on I approached her and I said, well, do we need to leave little textual signals in the handrail so that so that when you're concerned about your lines or your movement or the camera or all of those things, the last thing I need you to worry about is whether you're going to kind of not hit a space on. And Aria said, no, don't worry, I will learn the staircase. And she did.
Wow. So even though she wasn't a pro going in, she was a pro as you went.
Yeah. And brought the way, I mean, yeah, it was.
Meanwhile, on another note, you couldn't merely just build out construction in this production. You had to kind of think about destruction as well, right?
Yes. Yes.
You're dealing with the Nazis wrought, with giant piles of rubble and broken concrete, metal, and wood, and that's kind of sculpted as well as the other stuff.
Yes. So we were so lucky in the town. They welcomed us with open arms and enabled me to close the streets, and we built those huge piles of rubble. It was like a kit of parts. We had I think there was probably about 15 different size pieces of rubble, and with each corner of each street, depending on the scene, it would be a combination of number 1 sculpt with number 4 sculpt and number 3 sculpt, and they would be the building blocks over which then we'd put a layer of fine dressing, where there would be the old suitcases and bits of furniture and dresses and people's belongings, but they were very, very lightweight, which meant that any given moment we could move things along, allow emergency vehicles through. At the end of each day, we had to stand them off so the town could kind of function at the end of the day. So yeah, the amazing sculptors who came up with the system, and yeah, they feel and look so authentic, and yet they are beautifully lightweight sculpts.
I touched on CGI and that kind of stuff early in our talk here. Are CGI and AI kind of the enemy you fear, or is it something you use to enhance your designs? I mean, do you fear that these things can replace what you do ever?
I don't. I think there is a world building that now is available to designers that is only getting better. And I think the automatic reaction is, oh my God, it's all gonna be designed by AI. But when you see the synergy, when it works well, but for example, I think if you look at something like Dune, and the synergy there of practical sets, of CGI, it is so beautifully seamless to build a world that is only possible with that combination. So you get the authenticity and the feel of practical sets, but then there's another layer of CGI. So no, I'm not scared. I think it's opening the world in a even more exciting way.
So you can certainly work in concert with these things. They're not separate and apart from one another. It's it simply enhances what you do. That's obviously the healthy way of looking at it. And you're right. As long as what we see is beautiful, from your position as a production designer, that's all that matters.
And I think hopefully there's always a need for a designer, even working with AI, that will bring a heart and soul to something that perhaps will be lacking with AI.
Well, I think we're going to leave things there. All
Thank you.
four installments of All the Light We Cannot See are streaming on Netflix. Simon Elliott, this was fascinating. Thank you. Best of luck this Emmy season and every season. And thanks for joining us today at Gold Derby.
Thank you very much.